With us this morning is S&P's head of sovereign ratings for Europe, the Middle East, and Africa, Moritz Kraemer. He's with us from Frankfurt. Moritz, good of you to join us on the show. Let me ask you, just to start off with, you've been watching these developments in Europe closely. In your mind, what is the upshot of this 2 days of meetings that took place in Brussels?
Yes, good morning. This is an exciting moment in European policy formulation and implementation. We need to remember the negotiations are still underway. We're expecting a statement later in the European afternoon. But I think many of the main conclusions we already know. The ESM, the European Stability Mechanism, which is to be put into place starting in mid-2013 to support sovereigns that have difficulties accessing the capital markets, will be established. The one thing that is new that we learned today, as you mentioned, is that the German government did succeed in phasing out the paying-in capital schedule beyond what was originally envisaged. The upshot of that, the consequence, is that initially when ESM is going to be established in 2013, it will not be able to fully exploit its lending capacity, and the lending capacity will only grow in tandem with the capital being paid in. So after 5 years it will be fully operational in the sense that it can lend out the full amount it's scheduled, but at the beginning it will on a pro rata basis with a paid-in capital.
So Moritz, will that reduction in startup capital put the AAA credit rating at risk that funds would require, just like the EFSF has right now?
Well, I cannot really answer that conclusively because we need to see the details, as you'll understand. But what really matters is not so much the capital per se that they pay in, but it's the relationship between the paid-in capital and the guarantees that they will make available to complement it in relation to the credit exposure that the fund will have, meaning how much they will lend on. So in a situation where it would lend on immediately 500 billion, which is highly unlikely, but as a theoretical case, and the paid-in capital is only a fifth of the total, that would be pretty difficult to square the circle and say that at the same time, with all this credit exposure that they would have and the little capital that has been paid in to date, that this would be top-notch credit quality. But I don't think that is the plan they want to do. So it all depends on how quickly the lending operations would expand, and the expectation would be that they wouldn't expand faster than the paid-in capital.
It sounds, though, based on what you know right now, that that's not maybe where Standard & Poor's would be headed, towards a AAA credit rating. Do you perceive that the leaders are sensitive to this and may make adjustments required to earn that top-notch credit rating?
Well, I'm not quite sure where you draw this conclusion from, because we have not sort of said publicly anything about this subject. But the second part of your question, yes, the desire to obtain a AAA credit rating for ESM, similar to the current mechanism called EFSF, is clearly an objective of the policymakers. Now, the more important issue for us that we're watching is how will the ESM differ from the EFSF, and how will that affect senior bondholders of government debt? And there we think there are two issues which has raised our concern. One is that the ESM will be a preferred creditor to the sovereign, meaning that it will effectively subordinate senior bondholders to itself. And secondly, that the ESM could potentially make lending activities contingent on the receiving government, the borrowing government, first restructuring its private sector debt, its government bonds,
Moritz,
basically commercial debt,
Moritz,
to make it more sustainable.
Moritz, I'm afraid we've run out of time. Moritz Kraemer of Standard & Poor's.